hope you are having a great day. I know it's early, but we set our attitude as soon as we wake up, right, Nancy?
Absolutely.
So I am Delinda Lane, and I am your host for our Tuesday Live Faith in Action. And I have the lovely, wonderful Nancy White with me, and she's going to be with us for the next couple of weeks. So, Nancy, I'm so excited about that. This is going to be fun.
Oh, Delinda, it's so much fun just to come together with you anytime, but especially when we've got some great talking points and some series to really encourage and support women, just to give them the not only the hope of heaven, but how we have hope here.
Absolutely. And it can be a little scary, for when we get a little older. I mean, I'm no longer, in case you're surprised, I'm no longer in my 30s or even my 40s, but I'm not going to keep going and let anybody know. But definitely would be classified midlife. I'm not going to say any older than that. So I love this topic, and actually Nancy is the one who brought the topic up for me, and I thought that is a great topic because I think as what we thought about when we were younger, what our lives are going to be like if once we get into that midlife thing. I would guess that includes everybody that would be empty nesters. It could be anywhere from that just empty nester time on to retirement, whatever. So there's a lot of changes in this whole time of life, isn't it?
There is. It's a brand new season, and it's just, it's like people talk about football, it's in that, the second half. We're in our second half. We've gotten through our first half. We've lived to tell, and we might have a few little scars, but we are entering or in that second half, and it's exciting, Delinda.
Yeah, I think it can be, but it really is where you have your mind, how you're thinking about it, what your perspective is. And, I hear women talk about, well, what if this happens? Or what if I don't have money? Or what if I can't drive my car anymore? I mean, and y'all know my mother was with me last year for, about 6 months. And that was the height of hers. Now she is in the winter season. She is no longer in the mid, because she's 96. She's in the last quarter. But she acts like she's in the last half. So I love that. But Nancy, what are some other things? Let's just hit a few, and then we're going to, bring it down to two main topics for today. But over these next couple of weeks, what other things do you see as we get into this season?
Oh my goodness, there's so many things to consider, but Delinda, I think, the biggest part too is communication and making some preparation, and just having some things put into place, and then have that women love that security, knowing things have been decided, they've been discussed, people know what your wishes are, and you're not going to leave it up to somebody else to make the decisions for us.
Right.
We are feisty. And so, but we want to make sure that, we've got an input in how we're going to transition from this life to eternal life.
Absolutely. And I think maybe, Nancy, that is a topic big enough in its own that we might even in the next 2 weeks just let that be our main focus for one of the next two shows, because I know that is a big deal. And a lot of times when people are in the middle of their raising their kids and all of that, that kind of gets shoved aside, good or bad. It made me actually more aware of it when my kids were young and looking at, the what if this happens. I wanted to, Bill and I wanted to be prepared. So I think that is, I think we will put that particular piece of the topic on for next week or the following week, one of the next 2 weeks. So today, though, I think we talked about that fear, and we sometimes don't like to name them. And, you want to say, I'm not afraid of anything, but fear does hang over there. And we always have that balance going of, are you going to live in fear or in faith? Because you can't have both at the same time. So you're either going to live in faith or you're going to live in fear. So what do you think about the part of the losing the independence? I think that is a pretty big piece.
It is. And I think that, again, preparing and finding out, just like you mentioned, the what ifs, the different scenarios. If this is what's happening, what would this look like? if this is going to happen, what would this look like? And
Mhm.
just knowing what your options are. But again, the fear of the unknown, we can let that overcome and just, start eating at us. And, all of a sudden, all of our mind and all of everything's, focused on that. And
Mhm.
like you said, you either focus on fear or you focus on faith and trusting the Lord. But we get to choose and look and see the things and be educated. Look at us when we were, growing up too. We were always learning, always going to classes, always going to training, whatever it is, raising children is definitely on the job training. But
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
is. But we don't stop now. We want to continually learn. We want to continually know what options are, to become educated, to make those decisions and guidance. But I think when we have the fear of the unknown, I mean, do we have fear of heaven? I don't. I have excitement and joy that, we're just going to, like Beth Moore used to say, we just walk through the door, take off the old coat, and yay, we're, about our eternal environment in with the Lord forever and ever for eternity. But I think fear of the unknown, especially women, aren't we great comparers? We look at other women, we look at other scenarios and things that have happened and other people's lives, and we go, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to have to do that. But that's where God is with us every single day, every through the walk. We're walking with Him. But I do think that, knowledge and wisdom and understanding about everything that we're going through is something that's going to help disperse that fear.
Absolutely. I think you're right. And um, there are lots of classes that you can take in regard to that. I mean, so like you say, our learning is never over. I
Mhm,
think probably most of all, first is just naming it. Like the fact that
mhm,
we're talking about it now is a really good thing, and maybe that's going to spark someone's mind. Think, oh, wow, I didn't think of that, because we can change those what ifs to what now. What can I
mhm,
do now to better prepare myself? What
mhm,
don't you know about? For instance, I'm going to put this out there. If you, every family, so if you're married, every family, one or the other is the one that pays the bills and takes care of all of those financial things, right?
mhm,
I happen to be that one in our family, mainly because Bill used to travel all the time and the household really couldn't run if I if
mhm,
I wasn't doing it, because he wasn't around to do that. Um, so every so often I'll say, now you remember, where the passcodes are and stuff like that, making sure. And if it's the opposite, if it's your husband or somebody else that's paying your bills or taking care of that, you need to learn how to do that. Where are the passwords? How do you get into the bank accounts? Yeah, you got your debit card, but are you the one that sets up the bills every month?
mhm.
Becoming, and again, communication, like you said, but it is really educating ourselves to, okay, what can I do now? What can I learn now that is going to really help me in these next few years, or the next
Mhm.
25 years, whatever it is for you.
Yeah, it's like the Lord said, you get your house in order. And that's the same
Mhm.
thing. When we get things in order and then we tell, our children, we have a discussion and a communication with everybody. So everybody's on the same page. Because, you and I've heard and had people in our lives that, when the end of life came for one of the parents or both or whatever, and all the shenanigans that started going on and all these things. And that's why I think it's so important too for us to have those things in order, like you're talking about, your passwords and all those things put into a place. Because if they're locked into your computer or locked into your phone and nobody has access to them, oh well. And I did have a
Right,
dear,
right.
yep, I did have a dear friend whose husband died suddenly from a stroke, and they had a business together, and he was paying a lot of the bills and things that were on his computer and stuff. And there was months after he had died, and a collector came in for unpaid bills that she had no idea about. So I think it's really interesting that we do kind things for those that are going to be left behind. I mean, when we're in heaven, we're not going to be going back, oh, I wish I should have done and whatever. But we can leave things in a place and let everybody know where things are located, how they're going to do, what's going to happen, what are the wishes. And we'll talk again later, in one of our other sessions too, about the end of life and all those details that we get to go through. And I've just gone through that over this last year, and experienced that again firsthand. But anyway, but I think what you're talking about is, again, having that discussion, having those conversations, and then letting other people know. Like women go, well, if he doesn't know about it, I'm not going to tell him. I'm sitting there going, when did they become a mind reader? You know. So,
Right. The also and I kind of like that, the sound of the, what now? What can I do now? So one of the other things that you mentioned when we were chatting before was about one of the things we fear also is what happens to our bodies. What our health, and what if, instead of in the whole thing of, well, what if I can't drive, or what if I can't get around or take myself someplace, flipping it back over to the what now? What can I do now to get myself in better shape, better health? What can I do today? Right, Nancy?
Absolutely, because we don't want to become call our own victims of frailty. Just because we've got great lean muscle mass, you still have to have strength. And keeping mobile, keeping independent, as much as possible. And we do know that accidents happen. That's why they're called accidents. But
Right.
we want to do those things to keep nurturing that mind, that body, and that spirit, because you do have to nurture all those areas to stay strong. And God gave us these amazing temporary temples until we get our permanent maintenance free one, but we have to make sure we're keeping it strong and as healthy as possible. When something starts hurting or whatever, a physical therapist told me years ago, he said, if you've got some pain some places, it's because of lack of movement. And I thought, okay. So we don't have any excuse not to move it or lose it, because there's so many free things like on YouTube, exercises and a variety of different things. You don't have to pay a lot of money to go to a gym or do things. Some people enjoy going to the Y and stuff because they're going to socialize. How many times have we gone to the gym and the guys are just standing around just talking, and we're going, are you finished with that machine? But I think it's really important it's a mindset too. We want to keep strong. We want to keep as mobile as possible. We know that we don't do things the same way we did when we were in our 20s and 30s, but we are not going to use that as an excuse, because we've got good, strong muscles. We've got a sound mind. We've got all those things that we need to continue to exercise. And like we're talking about, learning is exercising that muscle between our ears. And so,
Yes, it is. It really is.
But I think, again, we do our best. But if some things do happen, you have to have a backup plan. If you've got, if had an injury or an illness or whatever, we need to find ways that we can get built back up again, and then keep on working on maintaining. That's the word nobody likes to know, is maintaining.
Because that's the boring part. But that is the part that does keep us going. That's, that is so important. And I love that. So right off the top of your head, because we've talked a little bit around this subject before, what would you say, or 3 or 5, if you could do it right now, 3 things that somebody could do right now to just improve their health? I mean, just in general things.
I think they should just stop. And they can get in touch with me, because I love doing a free, 30-minute consultation, but just really stopping and acknowledging the good things they're doing first and foremost. And then making a list of things, identifying areas that they would like to strengthen, and then what is a priority. And then also asking for help. Us women, we're going, I can do it myself or whatever. Well, sure. But, I don't mind asking for help. I've got a couple of teenage boys that live next to me that absolutely love doing things to help me. And I'm going, yay, come on over.
Yay.
We're gonna play, we're gonna work in the yard or whatever. So but I think for people to identify the priorities and the things, and we know what our areas of weaknesses are or challenges, and then finding out those ways. And if we need some support, we need to find out those resources to be able to help in those areas. I think that, we depend upon Googling and doing, so many things, searches, but you know what? Each person is a unique individual. And so I think, again, finding those areas that you need to make sure that you're sleeping well, you're recovering well, that you're having some good exercise, that you've got some really good nutrition that's building you up, and that's your fuel. And because, our bodies continually regenerate, Delinda, every 6 to 8 years, we're getting new bodies, and we might as well make new good ones. And so I think, taking that time just to stop and do that self-evaluation, and then discovering areas that we think that would be a priority. We can't do everything at once,
No.
but finding those ways and praying about it, because the Lord is right there. We don't have to do anything by ourselves. We've got the
Amen on
Lord.
that.
Yeah, we've got the Lord, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus right there. We got a team. And so,
We
yeah.
do, and I love that. It
Mhm.
is. And I think I love what you're saying there, because sometimes I think we just begin to ignore things like, oh well, it'll go away. And like I said, if you have a pain somewhere, oh well, that's just old age. No, it's not. I mean,
Mhm.
sure, our bodies change, but I think it's too easy to just say I'm getting older, I'm getting
Mhm.
old, so I can't do that. Well, no, we're also maybe, I'll speak for myself, getting a little bit lazy when it comes to some of that, because I just don't want to. But our desire to be better has to be greater than the discipline that it's going to take. I mean, we just do. Um, so, as you know, Nancy, because you and I talked about this back in September, that was when I changed my eating. I just prayed to the Lord about help me, and He did. So I'm eating much, much better, really laying low on the sugar. So that was my one thing.
Mhm.
And I've known ever since that day that we talked that, okay, so now I have to get the body in motion. And truly, I just started 5 days ago. And it's the smallest amount. This is to give y'all inspiration.
Mhm.
10 minutes. That's all I'm doing. 10 minutes, 6 days. I was going to do the seventh, but I was too lazy on Sunday. I didn't want to. So I can be really honest
It's
about
your day
myself.
of rest. Is Sabbath is a day of rest. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So would you agree? I mean, I have to tell you that in these five, 1, 2, 3, I've got up on my calendar, I'm marking it.
Mhm.
Um, is that I actually can tell a difference.
Mhm.
Just 10 minutes a day, y'all. That is just not much. If I can't work that my to myself, I said, Dylan, if you can't get 10 minutes of some kind of movement in
Mhm.
your body a day, then something is wrong. You better realign all your other priorities. And so most of the time, it's not that I don't have time.
Mhm.
We have all the same amount of time. But would you agree sometimes it's just those small little shifts?
Absolutely. And I celebrate you, Delinda. That's fantastic. And keep up the good work, because, you are loving what God has entrusted to you, and you're being a good steward. And that's what, we want to be well done, good and faithful steward and servant. And so, yes, the body is such a miracle. Within just 2 weeks, when you start doing something, you can start seeing some things change in your muscles, your strength, and all that. And I've got the same kind of testimony. After I came back from Portugal and all that sitting and walking and everything, my lower back just never got happy again. And I was still doing my exercises that I didn't do, but I know. So I went and I researched, and I found out there are some different other ways to do some different exercises. And I will tell you, within 1 week, like you, my low back has not hurt. My low back has gotten stronger and healthier. And it's just by those little tweaks and those things that, do you think it's called obedience?
Oh. Yeah, I do think it is. And you're so right on, because well, we are the temple, and how we treat it, and we none of us know what the Lord has next for us.
Mhm,
I keep really feeling, and I've shared with some of my Bible study gals, I feel like that I am in preparation now for something. And
mhm,
part of that is going to be physical, because He is like not letting me forget. So getting
yeah,
myself in a physical shape to
mhm,
do whatever His call is. I don't
mhm,
know what that is, but when we know, uh, when we know we're supposed to do something, we need to be obedient to that. And He didn't say I had to do an hour a day. He just
mhm,
start moving, get
yeah.
prepared. You know, we could have probably called this the preparation of things today, because,
Of things
getting
to come.
prepared,
Yep, and when you were saying that, I just had that memory of the scripture when they're talking about keeping the oil in your lamp to be prepared.
Mm,
And that's
mhm,
exactly what you're doing. You're keeping your body in preparation. And that's what we want to be doing. And yes, we do have recovery sometimes, but that's part of, you know, preparation. It's part of, doing things that we need to do. Sometimes we need to mend some things and so that they can continue to get strong again. So I think that's fantastic. And again, I celebrate you because yes, it's the little things, but it's the obedience, it's our heart attitude
mhm.
and going, yes, Lord. And so many times I'm asking the Holy Spirit to help me, to give me the power, the wisdom, the strength to fill me back up, to be able to accomplish those things. And He's so faithful, but then we need to stop and celebrate and say, thank you. Thank you for, allowing me. And I love asking the Lord, what can I do for you today? And in my mind, I go, what can I do? Or at the end of the day, go, did I make you smile today and not just laugh at me? It's like, we want to have that is that part of that loving heart that we have towards the Lord.
Yes, yes, and that I thought it goes kind of to just the small things that we do for each other, just
Mhm,
the smiles that we give, or the pats on the back. So thank you for celebrating me. Then I
mhm,
celebrate you too, as you know. I'm glad you got rid of your back pain. That's amazing.
mhm,
And again, most of the time, or a lot of the time, it is education. It's
mhm,
really learning about the different options, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
mhm.
Whether you're asking AI or a chiropractor. I love chiropractors. They
I do
they have
too.
kind of saved me several times from
Mhm,
actually lower back pain.
yeah.
And it's really like, okay, I haven't had to see him in a long time. So thank you, Lord, how He uses other people. And I think too, Nancy, would you agree that looking at your support system of the people in your life, so that when you do need help for something, say
Mhm.
for instance, you do get injured and you need help with preparation of meals or somebody to do your yard, don't you think it's really a good idea to look at your support system and see where you stand on that?
Absolutely. It's all about the relationships. It's all about, um, and you and I both know too that when you have fellowship, especially with other believers, that we're going to be there to help them. And when we do things for other people without ulterior motives or false intentions or whatever, we do it just out of the love and the kindness of getting to be Jesus's hands and feet, or whatever that voice or that encouragement. And again, we can just stop and reflect back over the times that people have been there for us to do things, um, to help us, and then the things that we can do for other people. We're not keeping score,
No.
but you are keeping that relationships, and you're keeping those communications alive and well.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, I think that really is important. And I think another one that adds into that is, as people get older, they kind of begin to pull in, and you see a lot of times where they begin to isolate themselves, and that's a
Mm.
not good thing to do. A matter of
No.
fact, that's where depression can come in,
Mhm.
bitterness. If you're not active and you're not out in, among other people, whether it's going to church or to Bible studies or in your business, if you're still working, those things are part of what keep us alive, and that
Mhm.
part of keeping us healthy, surrounded. God didn't intend for us to live this life alone.
All I gotta do is stop and look at all the people around. I love, being able to just stop and I look at every single person going, wow, God created every single one of these. He loves each one of these people and he desires that all of us should be in heaven together, because we do get sometimes thinking about, it's just me and my little world and my, environment. But if he wanted us to be here all by ourselves, we'd be here all by ourselves. But people need people. We
Yeah.
need to have it. I mean, even he sent the disciples out 2 by 2. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And and it's more fun.
it is.
And it just is more fun to share your life with, with other people. So
Mhm,
if you start feeling that I don't want to talk to anybody, I don't want to be around anybody, kind of catch yourself and ask yourself why that is.
mhm.
Maybe you are not feeling well and you're not identifying the fact that you just don't feel well, or maybe you're
Yeah.
experiencing some extra tiredness that's coming from a health challenge. It's
Mhm,
easy, like I said, just, "Oh, I'm just getting old," or just to off and off. But those are little telltale signs that maybe things aren't all in alignment. That maybe you need to
mhm.
look at that and be able to identify what it is. Maybe you need to go to the doctor and have a health checkup, or
Yeah.
whatever. I
Or
mean,
you can
there's
talk
lots
to
of
me
ways
too.
we could do it.
Or you can just give me a call and I'd love to talk with you, because, grief is something that people don't realize what a toll that can take on you physically, emotionally. The grief of loss of whatever, fill in the blank. And just like you're talking about, you sort of just start withdrawing and just going, you know what? I just need to go through a healing process. Well, sometimes you need to have another human being help with the healing.
I think that really is true. So as we begin to bring it to a close this morning, this has been a fun conversation. And again, it doesn't have to be fearful. It's like, let's look at what's ahead. How can we best prepare for that? How can we get ourselves ready? Obviously, turning it over to the Lord, but somebody said when I love that, it's easier for the Lord to move uh about let me think if I can get this right. Move a car that's already in motion than one that's standing still. you know,
Mhm.
it's like, let's just get things moving a little bit, and then God can do a whole bunch with that. We're just
It
like
is.
moving a little.
It is. It's just like the little fun movie with Nemo. It was Dory. Keep on swimming. Keep on swimming. you
Uh,
know, we
I
have.
haven't watched that in years with my kids.
I know, but it is. We have to take action, and when we're moving and we're staying in action, doesn't matter how slow or how fast. Just like you said, Delinda, we need to continue on as long as we have breath and we're grateful and thankful. And God has our days numbered, and so if today's our last day, we want to do our very best. And that's at the end of the day, we're going, Lord, I did my very best. And if I didn't get everything done or whatever, if I get to wake up tomorrow, yay, I'll come back and I'll work at it again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as we've talked about, so midlife isn't something to fear, but it's something to learn, to walk through, and get stronger and wiser, and not to do it alone. So, I
Mhm.
appreciate all of you being with us. Nancy's going to be back next week. I'm just thrilled about that. And I look forward to having y'all joining us again. And remember that life's not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. You get to choose what your future is going to look like. Are you going
Mhm.
to walk through it with strength and with faith and make some decisions today to help that? Or are you not? It's up to you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. God bless. And Nancy, I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Delinda.